What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be going over several controller Fortnite tips for zero build. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like to see more, and comment down below what controller you use to play Fortnite, whether it's Xbox, PlayStation, or I guess the Switch controller, Joy-Cons. Also, if you have watched my channel for a while, this is a type of video I make like every season or so. With the nature of Fortnite, there's always players coming and going. So if you've seen this video from me before, I'm just going to tell you that like you may have seen this already. Also, the sponsor for today's video is going to be AIM controllers. For July, they have a really good sale where you can pay one price regardless of how much you customize the controller using code EvolveJake. So the way custom controllers work is you choose which editions you want or which cosmetic changes you want, and each edition increases the price. With both code EvolveJake, you'll just pay one price for the month of July, and this price is cheaper than how a max customized controller would be in the past. For PS5, controllers will be $239. For PS4, controllers will be $209, and for Xbox, controllers will be $219. And this, again, you can customize it however you want. And these controllers do have lifetime warranty for the parts of the controller that AIM modifies, like the triggers, the paddles, things of that nature. The first thing I want to talk about, and I think the most important thing in this video that I've seen a lot of controllers players do, is they make a lot of excuses based on their input method. And you might be one of these people, or you might have a friend that's one of these people, where every time they die, it's because of controller in some way, or it's because the enemy was on mouse and keyboard. And if this is the mindset that you have, you probably will never improve because you're using this as an like excuse for everything. And like we all make excuses from time to time when we die, it is what it is. But if you're always going back to this one, like all the time, I think that's very bad. There's little reason why you can't improve on controller. Like keyboard does have a higher ceiling probably, or like not even probably, I think mouse and keyboard has a higher skill ceiling. But if you're a 5 out of 10 player, there's no reason you can't be a 6 or a 7. Or if you're a 7, there's no reason you can't be an 8 or a 9. Even competitively in this game, and I would argue the gap between controller and keyboard is larger in build mode, there's a lot of controller players that have done well. It's mostly keyboard players, but it's not like there's zero controller players. Most notably Marrow, the last LAN, the Global Invitational last year, he won along with Cooper, and he's a controller player, and he's won several FNCS. And if controller was just unplayable in a public match setting, you wouldn't see the biggest tournament of the year won by a controller player. So like just, you know, get that out of your head if every time you lose it's because of controller or because the enemy is on keyboard. Like it's just not good to think like that, and it doesn't really do anything for you. One huge piece of advice that if you're not doing this, I think will very much improve your aiming on controller, whether you're on console, PC with controller, and pretty much any shooter you play, is going to be left stick aiming. This is going to be moving your character left to right to make adjustments with your crosshair. If you just do this in game, as you move left to right, your crosshair moves because it's in the center of your screen. And one of the downsides of playing on controller is that it is more difficult to make small, precise adjustments with the analog sticks, with just the right stick. But if you combine your movement into this, it's going to make it easier for you to make those small adjustments. So aiming in combination with your movement and your right stick, I think is huge. And there is a creative map. I'll have the code for in the description below. And in the shotgun room of this creative map, there's a movement mode where it'll basically send force fields at you while you're shooting the targets. And then you have to dodge them and shoot the targets at the same time. And if you're someone who always stand still when you shoot, I think practicing in this room could be pretty helpful. Also, I think you need to just find a sensitivity that feels comfortable to you and feels comfortable to hipfire with. A lot of people make the mistake of copying somebody's settings and feeling like they have to use those settings even if it doesn't feel good for them. And I think that's a huge mistake. It's possible that you could copy some streamer settings and they just feel good to you, and that's like the ideal sense for you. But it's also possible that's not the case, and trying to just stick with it constantly could be very detrimental. Like obviously you want to give it a chance. Things won't feel good right away. But if you've been playing with settings for like, you know, an hour or two and it just still feels bad, don't feel bad adjusting. I think copying someone's settings can be a good starting point, but like don't be afraid to deviate from that. And I think you need to have a sensitivity that feels comfortable to hipfire with and track enemies in close range while hipfiring, because shotguns are very important in Fortnite. I would argue like the most important fights in the game are shotgun fights. And in these fights, you're often going to want to hipfire, and that's what's going to be ideal. Like there are times where you can aim in with the shotgun, or it might be ideal to aim in with the shotgun, but a lot of times hip firing is going to be the play. And so I think you need to have a sensitivity that feels comfortable to hipfire with and feels comfortable to like track opponents in close range with. Another huge aspect of controller, and I think this is one of the biggest downsides of controller, is getting optimal keybinds, because with optimal keybinds on controller, you don't want to have to take your thumbs off the analog sticks at all. Like if you have jump on X or A on or if you have it on X on PlayStation or A on Xbox, and you have to take your thumb off the right stick to jump, you're not going to be able to consistently jump and aim at the same time. And if you guys have played close range fights in this game, you know a lot of it is like jumping and strafing and crouching and things of that nature. So having your keybind set up in a way where you have to take your thumbs off the stick as little as possible is ideal. And the two easiest ways to accomplish this, or most convenient, I guess, would be playing claw. This is where your index finger is on the triangle, circle, X square, or AXBY buttons. I've played claw since like 2008, 2009. The other is going to be a paddled controller, and you can actually get this from AIM. That's like kind of the main benefit of having a custom controller, is paddles on the back that you map to different buttons on the controller, and then you hit those paddles using your fingers that are typically on the back of the controller, not doing anything. And so getting a paddled controller or playing claw, I think, is pretty ideal for controller players. You can, customize the binds in such a way where maybe you play bumper jumper, or you have like jump mapped to the analog stick push in or something, and that can work. But like having ideal binds on default controller non-claw, like there's probably sacrifices that are gonna have to be made somewhere. But either way, that it still can be better than just playing default keybinds. Another thing that could be huge is just having a consistent inventory setup, because this is again one of the larger differences between controller and keyboard, I think, is how inconvenient swapping weapons is on controller. And they have improved this with the quick weapon swap setting. For a lot of people, that's going to be ideal. But even then, it has its times where like you have to press 2 buttons to swap, and if any of those buttons require you to take your thumbs off the analog stick, that's going to be, inconvenient for the fight. So it's like, it's not perfect, but it's a step in the right direction for a lot of people. But either way, regardless if you're using the default weapon swap or if you're using the quick weapon swap setting, putting weapons in the same spot consistently, that way you can build that muscle memory, is ideal. I typically put shotgun in slot 1, my spray weapon in slot 2 if it's a 2-gun meta. If it's 3 guns, then sometimes I'll have like shotgun slot 1, SMG slot 2, AR5. But either way, right now I have shotgun slot 1, SMG slot 2, my car counter item in slot 3, my heals in slot 4, and then my gloves are typically in slot 5. That way I can swap from my gloves to my shotgun in one button click. That's pretty ideal when pushing somebody. Regardless of all of that, just having a consistent inventory setup and keeping that way you can build muscle memory, and keeping weapons that you use in sequence close to each other, I think is pretty ideal. The next is just going to be controlling recoil, and Fortnite actually has really easy recoil to control, in my opinion. Like, having played other shooters like Call of Duty, Battlefield, Rainbow Six, I think the recoil in Fortnite is pretty easy. Most of the time, if you just pull down slightly on your analog stick when shooting, you're going to counter most of that recoil. Like, some guns have like side-to-side recoil, but it's pretty infrequent in Fortnite. And just pulling down slightly will reduce some of that recoil. And I think this is a pretty easy habit to build. It's just a lot of people don't even think to do this. They just let the gun kick up and then hope it stops kicking up, which is something that happens in Fortnite. Or they like shoot really slow. But you can just kind of pull down to counter some of that recoil. And once you get in the habit of this, I think a lot of the weapons in Fortnite are going to be much easier for you to use. Crosshair placement is another thing that's going to help with aiming. And again, this is a universal skill across shooters. This is just going to be putting your crosshair where you expect opponents to be, or in a spot that requires the least amount of adjustment if a fight does happen. So one easy way to visualize this is when a lot of players are new, they just consistently look at the ground when walking around. And so if they get into a fight, they have to move their crosshair up to adjust to the person. Whereas if you kind of keep your crosshair at torso level, then you're going to have to adjust less when a fight does break out. And then when you combine this with kind of like knowing the map, especially in areas like weapon bunkers, for example, I'm not going to be looking down at the ground when I go into a weapon bunker. I'm going to slide into like that right side behind that wall, because it's typically where people are. And if they're not there, then I have that wall for right shoulder peek for like future fights. So like, again, I think this is something that's very easy to implement. It just kind of takes time of like intentionally doing it, to the point where it becomes subconscious and kind of forcing yourself to not look at the ground if you are one of those people that's kind of making that like beginner mistake. The next is going to be that weapons in Fortnite have different aim assist values. For example, the combat AR this season has no hipfire aim assist at all. When you aim in, it has aim assist. But if you are hip firing the combat AR, whether it's the machinist or a floor loot one, it has no hip fire aim assist. So just learning these weapons and kind of knowing about this, it's not really something that you can improve always, but just be aware that like some weapons have different aim assist values. So if you're watching a keyboard player dominate with a certain setup and you're like, why does this trash on controller? It could be that like that weapon just has less aim assist and that makes it therefore less effective on controller. Or it's just bugged in the sense of the combat AR. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but yeah, that gun has no hipfire aim assist. Also, just being aware of what things remove aim assist and not fighting around those is pretty helpful as well. Bushes are a good example of this. These remove aim assist because if you had aim assist on people in bushes, you could just slide your crosshair over it to check if there's people in there because it would slow down when you drag over the person, right? So if you're fighting around a bush, you're not going to have aim assist. And so this is an area that can be disadvantageous for you if you're a controller player. There's times where I'll still fight people in or around bushes, but it's something that I think gets a lot easier if you go into it aware of the fact that you're not going to have aim assist. If you're expecting your sensitivity to feel a certain way and then it feels completely different, I feel like that's going to throw you off more than if you expect it to feel different and then you kind of, maybe try to aim a little bit slower, be more cautious. So just know that bushes remove aim assist. There's been certain windows that remove aim assist. Another thing that just feels really inconsistent to me with aim assist is going to be the dashes that you can get from green water in the underworld biome. If I shoot like immediately after dashing or immediately after I land, I feel like aim assist is just way less consistent. So if I am using these dashes, I like to shoot and then dash and then wait, like not a second, but a small window of time before trying to shoot again and then dash. I don't want to shoot as I'm dashing. Typically it's shoot and then dash and then fraction of a second wait and then shoot again. I don't know if this is just a me thing, but aim assist has always felt inconsistent to me when using these dashes. So I do try to have like more, again, just awareness of the fact that things could feel different. Another setting that I think could be huge for controller players is just turning off vibration. Vibration makes your controller shake whenever you're shooting, and I think whenever you're taking damage. I don't know. I haven't played with vibration since like 2008, 2009, again, playing Call of Duty. But either way, like your controller shaking can be like helpful for like immersion in single player games, I guess. But when playing multiplayer games, it doesn't really benefit you to have your controller shaking and could potentially throw your aim off. So I'd recommend turning vibration off. Another setting that can be huge is going to be dead zones. This is at the bottom of the controller settings, and what this is how much you move your stick before the game starts to register any sort of movement. And the reason why this is a thing is because stick drift can be a problem. And so you can fine tune that and maybe fix the problem by adjusting your dead zones. But the thing is, the default dead zones I feel like are higher than what most people are gonna land on anyways. So I feel like the easiest way to set up this setting is just to put it as low as you can go without getting stick drift. For me, that's typically like 10-10-ish, maybe a little higher, maybe a little lower, but lower than the default range. And that just makes it your controller feel more reactive, and to me it makes it feel like it's easier to make those small adjustments that I was talking about before. That's kind of one of the main struggle points of controllers. So if you've never adjusted your dead zones, consider turning these down a little bit, and I would say go as low as you can go without getting stick drift. It may make your sensitivity feel weird at first because your controller is more sensitive, but I think you get used to it over time. And the final thing I want to talk about is that if you are a controller on PC, do not touch your mouse or keyboard or tab out of the game while you're in a match, because if you do that, it turns off aim assist. I think it's supposed to turn it off for 30 seconds, but who knows if it ever comes back. Fortnite is a very inconsistent game. They did this because some players would like play on controller, I think for like surge tags and competitive or something. So like normally they would play keyboard and then they would use their controller to abuse aim assist on like very specific situations. And so to combat that, Epic made it to where if you touch your mouse or keyboard, you lose aim assist. But just, again, this is something to keep in mind. If you're someone that's constantly tabbing in and out of the game and you're wondering why your aim assist feels like crap, that's probably why. But that is going to be it for this video. I hope you guys found this helpful, informative, interesting. As always, if you did, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like to see more, comment down below what controller you play with. And like I said, AIM controllers will be linked in the description below, and their July sale I think is very good. If you guys want to pick up a new custom controller and use code EvolveJake, you'll probably save a good amount of money. But that's going to be it for this. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.